Good morning, vinyl community. I'm here to read out a chapter of the Manson File called Cinemanson. Memory master Russ Meyer's Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, released in 1970 but filmed before Manson's arrest, was a surreal comedic semi-sequel to Sharon Tate's most successful film. Meyer's camp portrayal of perverse Hollywood party shenanigans directly evokes the gloating, virtuistic tone of public speculation about the Cielo Drive killings that prevailed before Sexy Sadie snitched in 1979. Imbuing a follow-up to Sharon Tate's best-known film with a satiric and bloody black comedy inspired by her murder certainly ranks as one of Hollywood's most tasteless moments, which is saying something. Just as Troy Donahue, star of Manson's based flick Street Survivors, knew Charlie and others involved in the drama, addressed Erica Gavins, one of her co-stars of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and her own intimate relations with so many players on all sides of the case that it seems to beat the odds. Gavins not only went to school with Susan LaBerge, Rosemary LaBianca's daughter, but along with the seemingly every other actress in Hollywood, dated J.C. Bring for the first time. In 1968, the former go-go dancer and star of Russ Meyer's lascivious satire, Vixen, dresses the line as a suggested foursome when she was invited to share a bed with Easton Estate with their boyfriend, Say Bring, Steve McQueen, and another woman. We will recall that Say Bring and McQueen were accused of sharing Sharon in a similar combinations. In 1970, Gavin went on to find the love of his life in lawyer Paul Fitzgerald, the legal defense attorney of the Tate LaBianca trial. Gavin met Fitzgerald under less than romantic circumstances when she was brought to the murder trial by a friend just 2 days before her film Beyond the Valley of the Dolls was opened. Through the connections, one of Sabring's girlfriends came to socialize regularly in a friendly manner with Squeaky and the Commune girls, and even engaging in correspondence with Susan Atkins. In the similarly tongue-of-cheek vein of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls are the in references to the Manson case made in several of John Waters' early films. The current director, a true crime buff, attended the Tate LaBianca trial and followed a gory detail with ghoulish fascination. He was particularly intrigued by Tex Watson and can seen by posing with his favorite homicidal link in prisons photos taken during a prison with Sharon Tate's killer, Manson himself. Waters has said didn't interest him since he didn't actually kill anybody. Watson, he said, didn't interest him since he didn't actually kill anybody. The director had long been time champion of parole for Leslie Van Houten. The supposedly satanic ideology imputed on the Manson circle by the media made the subject a natural for the new wave of occult-themed films, with Rosemary's Baby kicked off 2 years earlier. The Italian-made 1969 Mondo film White Angels, Black Angels, a pseudo-documentary studies of the 60s occult revival, was released in the United States as Witchcraft 70. Its poster featured a nude hippie chick witch in the Susan Atkins mode, luring thrill seekers to a secret glimpse of the rituals of the real hippie family. Rumors still continue to circulate, claiming that the obviously faked footage of long-haired Luciferian depicted in the film must be taken from the infamous Manson circle, home movies Ed Sanders gave so much attention to. Another Robert Quarry's sardonic performance in Count Yorgi, Vampire, had made him a horror star suited to the 70s youth market's stone sorceress sensibilities. In 1970, at the height of the cult stardom, Quarry saw the famous media's favorite new monster, Manson, as a role he could really sink his teeth into. The self-financed Ray Danton's The Death Master and donned a hippie wig to take on the lead part of Manson-esque vampire guru Corda. And his coffin washes ashore a California beach. The bearded bloodsuckers preaches pseudo-mystical blather than the hippie disciples. Corey was admitted to me that he made up his quasi-Charlie dialogue off the top of his head, was dissatisfied with the final result. The Death Maker illustrated a dawning impression that post-Manson California was now the new Transylvania, where all matters of high weirdness and an everyday occurrence. In my 1988 video interview with Charlie, featured in Charles Manson Superstar, he happens to be looking at a photograph of Corey as the Death Master's Mansonian bloodsucker, published in the earlier edition of this book. Isn't it funny, Charlie remarked. You've got so many people acting you, and you never get a chance to play act yourself. The sons and the daughters of Satan are diabolical hippie families running rabid in small town America in 1971. I drink your blood. Under the crazed gunship of one of Horace Bones, played by the Indian dancer Bakshar, the demented druggies drive straight citizens batty by doing them with LSD. Director David Dunstan clearly had black comedic social satire in mind with his over-the-top depictions of psychedelic Satanism versus bigoted hard-hats. But when I saw the film upon its release, the audience of the theater never laughed. They took I Drink Your Blood as a grim depiction of reality. By 1971, media coverage of the Manson case had so successfully demonized the counterculture that the public could accept even the most ludicrous stereotypes of a credible portrayal of the commune life amongst the new feared hippies. In 1969, former child actor and La Bianca neighbor Troy Donahue, friend and party guest of Tate Sebring, True, and Ian Quarrier, fled from his home on Waverly Drive and relocated to New York. The LA heat got a little too hot for Donahue when the police interrogated him about his relationship with Hollywood hangers-on who knew too much about the dope-dealing background of the Tate LaBianca murders for their own good. But he couldn't elude Manson's shadow. Donahue's next starring role found him cast as a sinister guru, Moon, in the 1971 Sweet Savior, directed by Robert L. Roberts. Although the archetypically California theme is rather jarringly in New York City, there's no doubt that Sweet Savior tells what was then believed to be Manson's story, with the names changed to protect the not-so-innocent. Manson's story with the names, perhaps it is Donahue's presence in the periphery of the real case that allowed him to return to such a serviceable performance in the hippie cult leader of the title. Just to make sure that the marketable Manson connection was obvious, Sweet Savior was released in some markets of the far less ambiguous The Love Thrill Murders. The doped-up biker hippie types in Michael Levisk's 1971 Generation Werewolves on Wheels are clearly modeled in the desert locale and straight Satan slaves aspects of the Manson case. Tarot and psychic biter reading in the gang, called the Devil's Advocates, is hung up on the occult. He reads the cards for the club's main mama and foresees bad vibes to come. This appears to be the form of a desert compound of satanic monks led by the Manson-esque guru known only as One. By then, Manson's teaching that the truth is one has been widely disseminated. The Manson case hit the big-budget market Hollywood movie industry too close to home for any studio-financed filmmakers to risk adapting the media sensation of the major motion picture. However, the influence of the media's Manson myth is easily discernible in Boris Siegel's offbeat The Omega Man in 1971, starring Charlton Heston as the last human survivor of the apocalyptic war of helter-skelterish dimensions. Henson's character is pitted against a doomsday cult of robed vampires called the Family, which the screenwriters appear to have consciously based on the combination of the Manson Circle and the Process Church of the Final Judgment. The Family's obligatory evil guru, Matthias, is played by Anthony Zerbe, although that is almost surely accidental. Some of Matthias's blood and thunder sermons in ecology and man's destruction of the environment suggest Manson's later Atwa philosophy. Movie Manson Mania crossed the United States southern border in 1972, leading to Brazil's sole entry into the helter-skelter horror genre. Carlos Benini's Guru de Sete Cidades, actress Renee Meticus played a millionaire jaded wife who falls under the spell of satanic cult hippie guru, played by Octavio Tesorito. The plot was obviously inspired by the news reports of the real-life rich celebrities who got their kicks slumming with the Manson Circle. Some critics have seen in Roman Polanski's bloody and dangerous laden version of the witch-haunted Macbeth a meditation on his wife's murder, but the director himself has denied this. Nevertheless, the informed spectator can't help but notice what appears to be direct, if obscure, references to certainly generally unknown details of the Cielo Drive mystery in many of Polanski's later films, including Chinatown, Frantic, and Better Moon. Where these odd inferences are subconscious or deliberate is a matter open to debate, but the observant watcher who knows what to look for can't help but wonder what mind games may have manifested in the post-69 Polanski of Cuerve. The Manson was on trial. Lawrence Merrick and Robert Hendrickson, connected to the commune through their mysterious actor friend Mark Ross, approaching the remaining girls camped out at the old movie ranch and asked if they could, in Paul Watson's word, make music and rap about Charlie on film. The Slippies were glad to oblige, hoping that the finished documentary would somehow help free Charlie from jail. The finished result, which includes illuminating footage of Lynette Fromm, Sandra Good, Nancy Pittman, and Paul Watkins, Steve Grogan, and Bruce Davis, was released in 1971 as Manson. Squeaky and Sandy steal the show with their fondling of rifles and revolutionary rhetoric in a clip endlessly shown on television news and documentaries as proof of how dangerous the commune was. However, since it's since emerged that those most provocative scenes in the film featuring red and blue are scripted and rehearsed, as were many of the other supposedly spontaneous interviews with commune members. The guns the girls are seen handling are just props provided by filmmakers Hendrickson and Merrick, wrote their radical rhetorical lines for them. The evidence from Fromm and Good have no experience handling firearms. Consequently, despite an undeniable historical value, the film can be dismissed as a deceptive Mondo film, in keeping with such fakery infecting available information on the Manson story. The stage scenes falsely presented as factual are no more real than a reality TV show. So don't watch this thinking that you'll experience the actual nature of the Manson commune. The director's generally objective approach is all marred by the heavy grandstanding hand of Bugliosi, who places what could have been an interesting historical document into his usual skewed expert perspective. Paul Watkins, one of Bugliosi's most cooperative collaborators in perpetrating the helter-skelter nonsense, was on the road with the DA to help promote the film. Little Paul and Brooks Poston, who gave lovely each other as they performed their own gentle folk songs in the film, are clearly deluded into thinking that 15 minutes of fame as footnotes in the infamous murder case would be their big break into the music business. Manson's co-star director Merrick, who operated a cut-rate Hollywood drama school, was inspired to make a documentary because Sharon Tate was his acting student several years earlier. Merrick, connected to the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad, was shot to death in 1977 at his film school by mentally ill aspiring actor Dennis Magnano. The assassin feared that Merrick cast black magic spells on him during an audition at his drama academy. No evidence linking Merrick's death to the Manson Circle has ever emerged. Merrick's late co-director, Hendrickson, who often incoherent online writing indicated some mental health issues of his own, later accused Merrick of stealing his film from him. Without a doubt, the most widely seen and influential film representing the Manson remains the 1976 TV docudrama Helter Skelter, a pedestrian adaptation of Bugliosi's bestseller film by Tom Grise. Limited by the bland conventions and mainstream television drama of the time, Helter Skelter is reminiscent of the corny Jack Webb TV crime show Vincent Bugliosi later contributed to. Into the late 70s, before Manson was permitted to give interviews to the media, actor Steve Railsback, hammy character of Manson, did more to form Manson's public image than Manson did himself. Getting in, discriminated by Bugliosi's self-aggrandizing book, would require the actual reading skills. So it's safe to say that the general public misinformation about the Manson case was more successfully spread to the masses by the popular and highly rated TV movie than the book itself. In this way, Helter Skelter was similar to other 70s multi-part docudramas such as Roots and Holocaust, which also provided American viewers with inaccurate but earnest entertainment, edutainment on historical themes. Ironically, Railsback's performance made Manson into such a larger-than-life, supernaturally empowered supervillain that many young people have been attracted to the Charlie mystique after seeing the film. A completely superfluous and equally mediocre remake of Helter Skelter was broadcast in 2004. Sources of less direct, dangerous commune references popped up in the low-budget horror films well into the 1980s. One notable example is the 1970s Blue Sunshine. The pilot concerns a group of respectable citizens who are performed into psychotic assassins by LSD flashbacks, a legacy of their youthful drug experimentation back in the 60s. The theme of acid and chemical murder triggered can't help but put one in mind of the more hysterical anti-Manson propaganda. And the bald heads of the female flashback killers are reminiscent of the skinheads looked reported by Charlie's girls during their sidewalk vigil outside the courthouse. Screenwriter John Milius wrote the first draft of the druggy Vietnam War epic Apocalypse Now in 1969, when Manson's reflections first appeared in the media mirror. When Francis Ford Coppola's film finally reached the screen a full decade later, the Manson mystique was used to support the movie's dark psychedelic mood. An army assassin is taken out by boat on a secret mission to terminate the mad renegade Colonel Kurtz, Marlon Brando. With extreme prejudice, the boat arrives in a dangerous, demilitarized zone. The small crew leads the mail sent to them from back home. One of the letters from the sailor's wife included a clipping cut from a newspaper article about Manson. We see the most famous photo of him in the partially obscured headline, Doris Day's son, slain in Tate case. The ship's cook reads aloud from the paper, Charles Miller, Manson, ordered the slaughter of everyone in the house anyway as a sign of protest. That's really weird, isn't it? The public image of Manson as an insane messiah that commanded the slaves to kill is conspicuously utilized here to foreshadow the coming introduction of the Colonel Kurtz's character, who is worshipped as a god by his native followers, who are referred to as his children. The Manson scene also underscores the film's frequent use of the U.S. Army slang word Charlie to describe the enemy Viet Cong. This double meaning was later exploited by the popular Manson t-shirt, which featured the live photo cover with the words, Charlie didn't serve, a famous line from the Apocalypse Now. But this Charlie cameo, only the most direct Manson reference in the Coppola film. The army assailed Willard, a part of whom Cielo Drive intimate Steve McQueen and Jack Nicholson were both considered, reaches the jungle retreat of Colonel Kurtz. There he encounters a burnt-out hippie and casually photojournalistic play by no method acting needed here, the burnt-out hippie and casually Dennis Hopper. Hopper's most improvised role in Apocalypse Now allowed him to finally deliver the Manson performance he never gave in 1970. The film scholar Carl French wrote in the 1998 Bloomsbury Guide in Apocalypse Now, Hopper's unnamed character as a Manson-like fried synapse, psychotic prophet and acolyte, while Hopper's over-the-top scheme chewing is broad. It's obvious that he's based his character, mannerisms, improvised amorphisms, and rapid style rap, at least in part, of his own first-hand observations of Manson's 9 years earlier. Blatant and vile Manson references to continue to appear in popular cinema over the next decade. Manson is named checkily or briefly glimpsed as a cheap scare tactic in several films. Sometimes his image is utilized as a sight gag. Jim Van Bieber's mediocre and surprisingly conservative underground production, Charlie's Family, is a slasher film rehash of Bugliosi's Helter Skelter and Sanders' The Family with a hip 90s gloss. The click-ridden effort offered the same old wrong story with more artificial blood than previous productions. As of this writing, despite many false starts and premature announcements, major Hollywood film companies have still shut away from handling the Manson phenomenon with even a pretense of accuracy. The recent biopic about Roman Polanski inevitably touched on Manson but repeated all the familiar falsehoods again, including Anton LaVey's long discarded lie about his invented participation in Rosemary's Baby. I have questions about that. Space requirements and lack of interest prevent me from covering the several Mansonoid film productions released in 2001, let alone such TV twists and the myth of the ill-conceived Aquarius. Of that number containing a slick emptiness of Tarantino and other industry fonders who discuss Jay Davis's low-budget Manson Family Vacation from 2001 merits a look. Despite its flippant tone and comedic portrait of the lost soul observed with the Manson case, dragging his disguised brother along with the Charlie's landmarks in LA captures something authentic about the subculture captivated by the Manson mystique. I doubt that there will be anything like a big budget cinematic attempts to tell the full Manson story accurately, and all of the major players in the real life drama are gone. And even then, it's hard to imagine Hollywood willing and reveal the true story of how one of us ugliest secrets to cover up for decades. Through a thorough and well-informed study of Charlie's reflections in the mirror of the movies, I can recommend Ian Cooper's Manson Family on the Film and Television, 2018. Jeffrey Melnick's Creepy Crawling, Charlie Manson and the Many Lives, America's Most Infamous Family, also 2018. Cast a wider net on Charlie's in culture generally, but offers some salient novel observations in Manson's alternate lives as a character in cinema and literature. But let's allow the man behind these fleeting fictions, defendant Manson himself, the last word in the sordid business of wringing dollars out of deception, which he was uniquely positioned to observe from his position as supreme scapegoat and easily exploitable cash cow, as he wrote to me in July of 2008. Here is the play, Money and War, Media and Lies. Lie can be like a house on fire. It's bright for a while, but burns out. That's the end of this chapter. The next one is letters from Manson and Lynette and all kinds of personal things about the family. So we're going to end this chapter and we'll say we hopefully learned something about the Manson mystique and to cover up the lies from Bugliosi to Sanders to the guy that wrote for Life magazine. If you like my stream at all and think I'm speaking any truth here, I would love for you to like and subscribe. Have a good day.